Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986. My name is Umesh Rao. Good morning to all of you. Today's subject is Child Labor and Child Labor Abolition and Regulation Act. This subject is part of labor law. In this class, we are studying who is child, importance of child, causes of child labor in India, rights of the child under Constitution of India, Child Labor Abolition and Regulation Act 1986. What is the objectives of the Act? Prohibition of engagement of children in certain employment with exceptions, and regulation of the conditions of the work of children in certain other enterprises. Child labor. Who is children? What are their conditions? Child labor problem. It is a socio-economic problem. Reasons of the child labor is poverty, illiteracy, overpopulation, climate change, man's migration from one place to another because of war, flood, famine, earthquake. So, children as a class are the weakest class. They cannot protect themselves, they are defenseless section. The United Nations Organization, Indian International Labour Organization, Indian Constitution have adopted certain policies and made several acts prohibiting the child labor. So, who is child? Child means those who have not completed 14 years in specified occupation. In specified occupations, it prohibits the engagement of children in certain employment. In other industries, it regulates the condition of work in certain other employment. It lays down penalties for employment of children in violation of the Act, and it prohibits the employment of children. Normally, child means who has not completed 14 years age. But as per Plantation and Labour Act, it is 12 years. As per BD and Cigar Acts, it is 14 years. As per Shops and Commercial Acts, it is 12 years. Causes of child labor. Child labor is a socio-economic problem. Reasons for the child labor is poverty, illiteracy, overpopulation, climate change, mass migration. Children are weakest class and they cannot protect themselves. They are defenseless section of the society. So, what is the poverty and family? How this poverty of the family leads to child labor? Because poverty of family means no food, no water, no education, no health care to children. For them, no choice. So, the parents send their children to work because of low literacy also. Another, lack of education. Without education, children has to do manual work. They don't have the skill to do any other job. So this also leads to child labor. And poor access to decent work. Children don't have skill. They do hazardous work. In some places, crops are destroyed on account of climate change or due to flood or due to earthquake. So they send their children to work. Mass migration. Mass migration may be due to war, famine, earthquake, flood. So then in that case also children are forced to work. Now rights of the child under Constitution. What our Constitution says. Article 21 of the Indian Constitution says, no person shall be deprived of his rights or personal liberty. Article 21A says, free and compulsory education to all children. Article 23 says, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Traffic in human beings and beggar and other form of forced labor are prohibited. Article 21 says, prohibition of employment of children in factories. Article 41 says, right to work and right to education. Article 47 says, nutrition and standard of living and public health. Article 39 says, the health and strength of the workers, men, women, and the teenager or children should not be abused. Article 39 says, the children are given opportunities and facilities to develop a healthy manner, freedom, and dignity. So, childhood and youth are protected. Summary of the child rights. So, child should not be discriminated. Child should not. Child should get development of human personality from his birth, and he is entitled one name and he is entitled nationality by his birth. Special care and protection to child and mother so that they should grow healthy, and child should get nutrition, housing, recreation, and medical services. Handicapped child deserves special treatment and education. He should get love and affection. Child should get free and compulsory education, no neglect of child, no cruelty, and no exploitation. Child should not be engaged in employment. Child has a right to life. Child should not be separated from parents. Child should not be subjected to torture. For child, no capital punishment and no life imprisonment. Child Labor Abolition and Regulation Act 1986. What is the objectives of the Act? This Act prohibits the engagement of children in certain employment. In addition to that, it regulates the conditions of work in certain other employments. This Act bans the employment of children who have not completed 14 years in specified occupation. It lays down procedure to modify the schedule of the banned occupation. It regulates the conditions of work of children in employment where they are not prohibited. It lays down penalties for employment of children in violation of provisions of the Act which prevents the employment of children. Now, Child Labor Abolition Act of 1986. Objectives, we know that. Objectives prohibit the engagement of children in certain employment. Further, it regulates, if employment is permitted, it regulates the conditions of work of children in certain employment. Now we will talk about banned occupations or processes or prohibited. Ban on the employment of the children who have not completed 14 years in specified occupations. What is specified occupations? The schedule of hazardous occupations and processes of the Act has been divided into two parts. One part A of the schedule covering a list of hazardous occupations as processes in which children are prohibited to work. It contains list of occupations as listed below. What? Part A, transport sector, automobile, foundries, handloom, mines, dabas, restaurants, hotels, and shops. In this case, all the cases, children are prohibited for employment. In addition to that, Part B, it is an additional list. It contains a list of occupation and processes where children are prohibited. Part B contains the list of processes and containing following industries: BD industry, carpet wearing, cement manufacturing, manufacturing of watches, explosives, and fireworks. In this case also, children are prohibited. In the above industries, employment of children in certain occupations and processes are prohibited. So no child should be employed. No child should be permitted to work in any of the occupations set forth in Part A of the schedule, or any work where in any process set forth in Part B of the schedule. However, there is an exception. This is not applicable to the processes carried on by the occupier with the aid of his family or any social establishment governed by the government of India or receiving assistance by the government or recognized by the government. Now we are discussing this regulation of conditions of work of the child. In some other than this schedule A and B, children are allowed to work. The provisions of the part apply to establishment or class of establishment in which none of the occupations or the processes referred in the section 3 above. So here government makes some regulations, conditions. What is this condition? The period of the work in each day shall not exceed 3 hours. Child should not work more than 3 hours, and an interval or rest or for 1 hour. This rest, it is inclusive of rest. Work should not spread over more than 6 hours, including time spent on waiting for work on any day. So, period of the work is a fixed. Period of the work shall not exceed 3 hours. No child shall work for more than 3 hours before interval or rest for 1 hour. Second, the period shall not spread over more than 6 hours inclusive of rest, waiting for work. Child shall not be permitted to work between 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. Child shall not be permitted to do overtime work. Child should not be permitted to work in any establishment, other establishment, on any day on which he has been already working in another establishment. In addition to that, the occupier must maintain register containing the particulars of such name, date of birth of every child, hours of work of such nature of work, and other particulars. So, in nutshell, child is prohibited some industries, and in some other industries there are conditions of work. But whenever employer breaks this condition or whoever employs any child to work in contravention, he shall be punishable with imprisonment of more than 3 months to 1 year and fine of rupees 10,000 to 20,000. This is for first offense. For second offense or repeated offense, imprisonment not less than 6 months, and person convicted of an offense, it may extend to 2 years. In addition to that, there is a penalty. Penalty for not giving notice, penalty for not maintaining register, penalty for not displaying in the notice board, penalty for not complying the provisions. In case all these cases, simple imprisonment, it may extend to 1 month, or with fine, which may extend to 10,000 years. In addition to this, there are government can make rules for the health and safety of the children employed to work in any of the establishment in the following manner. What is the matter? When the employer has to maintain cleanliness of the places of work, child should be given freedom from nuisance. Employer has to make arrangement for the disposal of waste. Employer has to maintain ventilation and temperature. There should not be dust and fuel, humidification. There should be proper lighting. Proper drinking water should be given. Latrine and urinal should be there. Tools should be there. Fencing of machinery, danger machinery is very necessary. Working when machinery in motion, employer has to take very careful. Employment of children on dangerous machines is prohibited. Training and supervision for children on dangerous machines should be given. For children, protection of eyes, tools should be given. Explosives and dust gas protection should be given. Precaution in case of fire arrangement should be made. Maintenance of building should be made. Safety of building and with some and excessive weights. All these conditions employer has to take care of.